Greetings, my name is Sumitiper and welcome to ACERVO Season 3 Episode 8 Rotting in the Trenches. Father's Day drew near again, and for the staff at the retirement home, it meant a lot of people coming in from far away to spend some hours or maybe a day with their relatives. Though, despite the disregard that many young people have towards the elderly, they are far from unknowing. As the father and son enter, the little child runs towards his great-grandpa, a smile striking across his wrinkly face. He looked up at the father, who also glared happily. The child asked for the stories of the time his father, his father's father, and him lived in a small road by the woods, and the great-grandfather told it with joy. However, that was not the story he wanted to tell, but the story he wanted to tell was not appropriate for a child. His grandson warned him not to tell that story, so that he may not traumatize his son. Despite some protests, the great-grandfather agreed. It had been such a long time ago, but when things like that happen, you tend to not forget, despite how much you may want to. There was a long war fought in a foreign land. The skies were filled with smoke, and blood pooled all around. Men were falling all the time, and the only thing that maintained any semblance of order were the commands for men to die in the name of a country they no longer believed in. Even worse for these men in particular, as they were not even fighting for their home to protect what is dearest to them. They fought to protect someone else's fatherland. The trenches were horrid, filled with all sorts of disgusting creature, breeding ground for disease and dishonorable grave to many. What was even the purpose of honor? What would a stupid piece of metal mean when so many innocent lay dead, when a criminal remained free from being persecuted for their war crimes? In one of the days, a tempestuous storm threatened to drown the soldiers. The area of combat was incredibly flat and highly susceptible to flooding, and for certain a flood was coming. One side was forced to retreat in a hurry, and the other, seeing the opportunity, rushed in to conquer, only to be met with bullets to the face and high water reaching their thighs. After the arduous week, the men returned to witness a nature-made massacre of enemy troops. They had simply refused to give up, or rather, some higher up saw their lives as disposable. In inspecting the trenches, countless corpses were found, some enemy, some allied, and some were unknown. The bodies were looted for precious objects and then thrown away. In one area of the trenches, the man that had yet to become a great-grandfather saw the most horrific sight in this entire war. He had seen blood and people losing their arms and faces, but nothing could have ever been such a horror as this. A fallen compatriot he knew well, a childhood friend from the same little village, attending school together, marrying their respective sweethearts, and then going off to war. The corpse was pale, almost completely devoid of pigment. His cheeks and eye sockets were sunken deeply that it made the pale skin look gray. His lips were completely indistinguishable from the skin on his face. His mouth was wide open. most likely indicating that he had choked to death. The most horrifying thing were his eyes. The pitch-black pupil pierced through his soul. There was no emotion portrayed on the corpse. It must have all happened too fast. Despite how frozen in time this moment felt, the man knew he had a lot of things to do. He tried to search around, but could not stop getting distracted and shifting his gaze to the body of his friend. He saw that there was a white envelope near the corpse's foot, and despite how irrational and impossible it all felt, the man feared that the corpse would jolt up and scream for him not to take that envelope away. Feeling judged, he opened it to find a photo of his friend's sweetheart with the words written, "I will always love you, Linda." The man pondered for a long time whether or not he should take that photo, very similar to the one he had with him at all times. He elected to leave it there for respect of his fallen friend. Just as he put it down, he was touched in the shoulder. Turning around frightened, he was relieved to see it was just another compatriot. The compatriot asked if he had found anything precious. The man looked down at the photo and the compatriot examined it before considering it worthless and throwing it away. The man carefully took the photo and put it in the corpse's pocket so that it could be near his chest and his dead heart. The man left scarred and not being able to think properly for the remainder of the war. They had not known it at the time, but they would have less than a week of fighting before them. An armistice was signed, and they were all allowed to go back to their homes and each man to their home. In the station, the man braced his wife, relieved of the terrors being all over. But then he looked to the side and saw the woman in the photo. He approached her and looked in her eyes before muttering the words, "I'm sorry," as he lowered his head. The woman cried and left with a broken heart, never to be seen by that man ever again. Despite everyone congratulating the man for the victory in the war, he said nothing. He mentioned no honor, no heroism, and no glory. He knew that war was hell, and through the dead eyes of his fallen friend, he had seen death itself. He wanted to tell everyone of the horrors, but he was always interrupted when introduced as a hero, or outright dismissed as a wrinkly old man who was ignored, or unjustly branded as senile and having nothing of value to say. I hope you enjoyed this video. This has been Sumitiper, and thank you so much for watching.